A former member of the ruling party, he's now chosen to run with the Progress Singapore Party. He's a theatre aficionado, a ballroom dancer with a career in media and television, hailing originally from the east side of London, but a true homegrown Singaporean, some might say. Our guest today is a fervent believer in accountability. Let's discuss that. Welcome, Brad Bowyer, to Inconvenient Questions.
Welcome, and let's hope the questions aren't too inconvenient.
Well, that's my challenge here today to
Yeah.
you. So, Brad, one of the views circulating around by people is that we don't really know who you are, right? We don't truly know you. You make these stirring speeches and critical comments, but the trust factor isn't really there. It's not very strong. And it doesn't help that you have moved from one party to another, and then now with running as a candidate with the PSP. What do you have to say to something like that? Could you give us a little inkling into who Bradley Bowyer really is?
Sure. I mean, I think I'll address it in 2 points. The first point I'll go to is the party thing, because that comes up all the time. I've only actually ever been a member of 2 parties, the People's Action Party and Progress Singapore Party. When I left PAP, when I was too disillusioned, someone introduced me to Lim Chen at that time. He was with PSP, he was with NSP, he was the Sec-Gen there. So I did a couple of walkabouts with him, I started to get to know them, but they're a very small organization and they didn't really seem to have the ambition that was what required to make changes. And obviously Lim Chen left and set up his own party. So I kind of followed him. I was never a member of PV, I just was helping where I could. And then it sort of became clear that that was going down the same path. And then Dr. Tang came on the scene. I was a big advocate of PV getting involved with Dr. Tang or just joining, because we've got far too many small parties, but that just wasn't something that was going to happen. So I couldn't again stay and join and officially become a member of something that was not where I thought it should be. So I actually just went away and started blogging. And then once everything was formalized with Progress Singapore Party, I volunteered. So I've only been a member of 2 parties. I have been exploring to find what is the best way to help Singapore, which has led me to where I am now. As far as me as a person,
what drew you to PSP then? Is it because it was the sort of the hot new party on the block? Is it what exactly drew you?
No. I mean,
you wanted to lead the charge.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in Singapore for many years. I mean, and I guess I am pretty much Singaporean on the inside now, right? We're very practical people. We want solidity. We want stability. We want something with depth. We don't want just a noise. We want something real there. And the thing about Progress Singapore Party is, I mean, from the very beginning, they were going to be a big organization. They were going to be organized. They had a legal structure. They had an admin structure. Everything was being put in place for something that was long-term and broad and deep. And that's what I thought Singapore needed. I mean, we have Workers' Party and now, to some extent, SDP as they've matured, who are big, stable parties. But a lot of the others, I just didn't feel they had, what was needed to stay the course and really have a proper impact.
Even
but
the
PSP had that.
Even when you were a volunteer with the PAP, you felt like they didn't have that structure to go the distance?
With PAP, it wasn't that they don't have the structure, it was the direction they were going in and how that structure had morphed to some extent, because there were still a lot of good people, and even today there are still a lot of good people in there, but they don't have the right influence. There is, a very hierarchical system, and a few people define everything. If those few people make mistakes or take things in the wrong direction, there's not much anyone else can do. So even though you feed up from the ground, it falls on deaf ears. I mean, that was why I left. Otherwise, I would have still been there.
So do you think that the opposition right now and the PSP, sort of the tip of the spear, is faring any better in terms of actually hearing or relating to concerns on the ground?
Oh, definitely. I mean, and if you look at us, I mean, the makeup of our candidates, the makeup of our members, we come from all walks of life, all backgrounds. We're all very intimate on the ground because we live there. You know, we don't live in an ivory tower. We live in the regular Singapore like everyone else. So, you know, we feel it every day. We see what happens to our children. We see what happens to our parents, you know. Like my father-in-law, he was happily retiring. Then SIRS came along, they took his HDB, paid him a small amount relative to the HDB he had to move into. So he ended up with a mortgage again instead of being able to retire in. And what did they do with the piece of land they took back? They left it empty for 6-7 years, and then they built private condos on it instead of giving it back to the people, as we were told that's what it was supposed to be. So, you know, I mean, I feel it on the ground from everyone around me. So no, I think we're very connected, and that's how it should be. I mean, politicians are supposed to be servants and representatives of the people, not a class above them, but drawn from them.
So, but if we think about the realities of actually mounting an opposition, right? Do you really feel that a single party alone can do this? So I know Dr. Tan has sort of talked about, and in the PSP has also talked about in Moldova, the idea of an alliance, you know, getting the different opposition parties to come together as a bloc so that you can mount a real cohesive, you know, opposition to the incumbent party. Do you feel like that PSP has really addressed some of these fissures, or what steps have you taken to really sort of gel the opposition, the different opposition strands together? Or are they just concerned about, no, it's fine, we'll lead the charge?
No, I mean, I think, first of all, I want to try and change the language. We're alternatives. We may be opposing the way PAP is doing stuff, but we're an alternative choice for Singaporeans. And that's one of the things we have to overcome, is that there is a lot of negative language out there used on people who have alternative voices. But in that alternative space, I think we're doing as much as we can at this point to coordinate each other. Certainly amongst the majors, if you look at what, you know, where we are as far as SDP and Workers' Party goes, we're very much aligned in where we're going and what we're doing and how we're assisting each other. And there's a lot of background negotiation.
But not enough to formalize an actual coalition of sorts.
Well, not 100%. I mean, first of all, that's not something that you can legally do unless you kind of do something like that Singapore Democratic Alliance that they had briefly. But it's more a case of we all have our points of view, and actually we don't want to create on the other side another equivalent of the PAP, you know. So we're a selection of alternative voices, and if in Parliament you had, you know, not just 2, but 3 or 4 parties putting some voice in there, we'd get diversity in Parliament as well. So you don't want to replace one monolith with another monolith. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be 100% totally aligned, but at this point in time, because the incumbent is putting so many hurdles in our place, we have to be very coordinated, and we're doing our best to do that.
Okay. So let me sort of switch tracks here a little bit, and touch a little bit on your career in you know, media consulting and television and things like that, right? Would you say that politics, you know, now that you're a political candidate in Singapore, that politics in Singapore are somewhat theatrical? Is there, what does it take to succeed as a political candidate in the general election?
For Singapore, I don't think it's theatrical. I mean, certainly not from our side. I mean, you've got to come from your heart. You've got to be honest. You just got to put yourself out there. And that's sort of what we're trying to do. That's what I see everyone trying to do. Obviously, we have to use all the media tools that we can to hand to get that image and that message out there. I mean, when we go to meet people, they can't see our faces and smiling because we're stuck behind a mask, right? So we have to, you know, let our personalities come through in other formats. And I don't think Singaporeans like theatricality. They want to know facts. They want to know who you are. They don't want wayang. They want reality, and that's kind of, you know, the direction we're moving to.
Do you think that Singaporeans have the ability to sort of discern that? Because, you know, lots of PAP candidates as well on the ground, you know, are highly relatable. You know, they interact, they're always smiling, they have a meal with you, they knock on your door, they have long conversations with you. And then, of course, you know, candidates such as yourself say, you know, when you get to Parliament and you're running the government, then it's an about turn, a 180. And that's where you're saying, you know, it's a wayang. You know, how are we so sure that candidates such as yourself, you know, showing your authentic self on the
Mm.
ground, when elected to parliament, will not do the same about face.
Mm. I mean, I think some of it comes from depth, what you've seen of us over the time. I mean, obviously, for me, I've been involved nearly 10 years now. Many of our other candidates have had multi-year, either in grassroots, in government, in various other bodies. So, I mean, we have a track record of what we've done and where we've been and where we're coming from. We may just be turning up now as candidates to be in Parliament, but we've been around doing a lot in Singapore for a very long time, and there are plenty of people that can attest to that. And that's really what it's going to come down to: is it's who do you trust, and you just have to know that takes time. You can't get trust instantly. Even the best actor in the world can't get trust just like that. Maybe momentarily, but very quickly you see through what is true and what is not. And I think Singaporeans are much more astute now than they used to be. I would say, yes, there was a time in the 70s and 80s, very focused on survival, very focused on building, not really looking that closely. But now I think we're a very sophisticated population, and our politics actually has to catch up with the people. The people now are more mature than a lot of the politics.
So that's interesting. So you feel like we are that our existential needs are different now, and that we're a much more sophisticated population, right?
Yeah.
So to sort of take that tangent on theatricality, let's talk about POFMA, right? You've talked about how POFMA has the potential to reduce Singaporeans' ability to discern information critically. As a more sophisticated population, do you really feel like, has POFMA made you think less critically?
For me, no, but we're talking about the wider population, and we're also talking about...
So they don't have the capabilities to think critically or discern critically?
I think they're developing it, and it depends at what level of the society you are. We have all different levels. But when it comes to something like, I mean, effectively, POFMA was created for what they call the phenomenon of fake news, which essentially is you're saying something that makes you feel bad about the government in our context. And in fact, around the world, it's really driven by authority figures and governments, that kind of thing. But it's a trust issue. And that comes from the government acting in a way that people will trust them. So putting in laws and putting in things to shut down commentary doesn't address the primary trust issue.
But they don't shut down commentary, do they? What isn't POFMA simply, if you've indicated something that has a falsehood, you simply put up a correction notice alongside the original post, and I believe that's what happened to you as well, right?
That is what's happened to me. And that is where the piece of the legislation that you've seen publicly used so far. However, there is far more to the legislation than just that. And we've got to see whether any of the else of it comes out during this election. Because during the election time, POFMA things can do things that actually put people in prison for saying things that are deemed to influence the outcome of an election. So there are many strands to it that haven't been made public yet. If you read the regulation, there is a lot of dangerous rules in there. And at this point in time, they're held by civil servants. I mean, Shanmugam himself, when he passed the law, was saying that he couldn't vouch for how future people would use it, which means he knew that it had room for abuse in it, but he wouldn't abuse it, and the government wouldn't abuse it because they would be accountable to the public. But now all of those powers are given to civil servants. Who are they accountable for? If I'm, a civil servant, I want to protect my ministry, I go and use this power, even if it's proven I did it overzealously and incorrectly. Our runway is so short, 8-9 days, it could have a material impact on the election, and by the time it's all settled, it's too late already.
But haven't you mentioned before that, you have strong belief in the civil service of Singapore, right? That even without, you have a plurality and sort of competing, politicians for the stewardship of the country. But regardless of that, the ship keeps running because of the well-oiled machine that is civil service. So why is there no trust in the fact that, they won't use these laws in a judicious manner?
Well, this is where I think it's to do with where you are in the hierarchy. I would say from like 95, maybe even 99% down, you've got that all the way. The very top level is where you start to have some questions. because of the way they move through the system. Again, I believe most of them will do everything correctly by the law and they won't. But it only takes one to be a little overzealous and that could have a major impact. And that's why I think laws like POFMA are not only reckless, they're also unprofessional. You know, they open things up that shouldn't be there. They break basic tenets of law. I mean, the basic tenet of law that every student learns right at the very start is you shouldn't be your own judge, and yet you have to appeal to the minister, or in this case, civil servant, who actually made the order in the first place. So, you know, I mean, it's breaking tenets of law and it's opening up all sorts of options that really shouldn't be there, and conflict of interest that shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be that a civil servant has to hold that responsibility and potentially then realize, oh, I've made a terrible mistake here. On the one side, the guy who's possibly going to be my boss again in a week's time, you know, I've got to look after him and the ministry. And on the other side, I've got to look after my country. And it's very challenging. This is why some of these things need independent bodies to look into them and hold those powers, if even those powers are necessary.
So the solution is to create that independent body to provide that oversight.
Yeah, I mean, what I talked about in my POFMA speech last year was that we should create our version of, say, Notes of Singapore. We get our intellectuals, our journalists, you know, relevant people to put together a verification location, and we have an independent body to adjudicate some of these things if it's necessary.
Okay. So maybe just a quick concluding question, Brad. I'm sure you get this question a lot, and you know, I hesitate to sort of, you know, bring up the whole Ang Mo thing. But in the past few days, in the past few weeks, you know, with campaigning and all that, have you felt accepted by the ground? You know, when have you connected really well? What is some of the feedback that you've gotten from you know, the constituents? And you know, do you feel like not being Asian, even though you've basically lived here your entire life, and you know, been very involved in grassroots politics, do you feel like that will be an impediment in your campaign?
No, I mean, in 35 years, I think it's the same for any minority, and I guess technically I'm a minority of one, but you get an element of negativity, you know, maybe 20% of that, and then you get 20% of wow, and then the rest in the middle are just normal people. So most of the time, we're just having regular conversations. There's some interest, I'm different, and that to some extent may even be an advantage. I mean, I hope it is. I hope people think, yes, he can give a different point of view that we haven't heard before, and what we need now is diversity of viewpoints. So no, I mean, I've always felt welcome. People are always friendly. There's a few, which is what you get in any society. But overall, I mean, it's very positive I've got out there on the ground.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you so much, Brad, for sharing with us your thoughts and, you know, allowing us a little peek into your own personality, your interests, and also the PSP. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.